Coming up on 2020 on ID, a desert retreat where the pursuit of happiness can kill you.
People were coming out screaming, I'm dying, please don't let me die.
Following a charismatic self-help guru who let them in on the secret behind the secret.
Law of attraction says like attracts like. Now bang, you've got a Mercedes.
James, his role was God. So he wore white robes and he was God.
I trusted him 100%.
But could trusting him cost them their lives?
You guys think you're done, but I still got one more thing planned for you.
It was going to be hot. We were going to sweat. It was like inhaling fire.
2 people not breathing. There was no pulse.
And she played full on to her death.
The guy's like, what happened here? Is this like a mass suicide?
Accident or crime? What they were looking for, and what did they find?
I'll never be able to forget it.
Hello and welcome to 2020 on ID. I'm John Quinones. It was an incident that made headlines. 3 people dead and more than a dozen sent to the hospital after attending a sweat lodge ceremony in Arizona. Who were the people following the teachings of James Arthur Ray, and what would cause some of them to endure motivational exercises so extreme he told them they would feel as if they were going to die? In 2010, Dan Harris first brought us this story of a man who said he could bring enlightenment. But in the end, his spiritual salvation came with a very heavy price.
Mastery is about embracing the pain and the pleasure in the pursuit of your purpose. There's going to be challenges for me and for you.
On October 3rd, 2009, about 50 people from around the U.S. and beyond traveled to this ranch just outside of Sedona, Arizona, a city known for its blending of spirituality and commerce.
I was excited to go, but I was still very nervous and very anxious.
The group is made up largely of established professionals, people like Brandy Amstel, an independent filmmaker from Austin, Texas, Kirby Brown, a decorative painter from Los Cabos, Mexico, and Christina Bivens, a software executive from Northern California.
Very ambitious people. They know what they want and they go for it.
They were not here for a vacation. They came here to a place that many believe has mystical energy for something called the Spiritual Warrior Retreat. They were told they would have their limits tested and that they would reach levels of personal fulfillment that they had never reached before.
I knew that I was going to change or be asked to change who I currently know myself to be.
I'm going to let go of anything that's holding me back from the life that I want to lead.
And they were counting on their host to make it all happen. His name, James Arthur Ray.
This is James Arthur Ray, and I'd like to welcome you to your journey.
Ray is one of the biggest names in the $11 billion a year self-help industry. It's not just an industry, it's a movement that permeates our culture. Bookstores devote entire shelves to new agey self-help books. Fortune 500 corporations send employees to seminars like Ray's. And the industry even holds large conventions.
Thank you for supporting this.
Of course, self-help has been around for decades, but the movement truly exploded in 2006 when a modest book and DVD called The Secret became a cultural phenomenon.
That is such a seminal event in modern-day self-help, but had heretofore been looked at as just kind of new agey stuff, could now be mainstream.
So what's the secret of the secret?
Well, the secret is the law of attraction.
And what's the law of attraction? Well, it's kind of like karma on steroids.
In simple terms, if you are constantly thinking, feeling, and acting broke, then you're never going to attract prosperity in your life. Conversely, if you're constantly thinking, feeling, acting healthy and whole, then you're going to attract and create that in your life.
This notion that one's wishes can be fulfilled by properly wishing for them is advanced by a whole crew of self-help gurus who appear in the film.
It's the law of attraction. Everything that's coming into your life, you are attracting into your life.
But for these people, the most compelling speaker by far was James Ray.
Every great teacher who's ever walked the planet has told us that life was meant to be abundant.
What about him stood out to you?
I just liked his approach. It just seemed like a really practical way to pull a lot of things together for me. It resonated.
As The Secret's sales boomed, James Ray was catapulted into the self-help stratosphere. His book became a bestseller, and he started popping up all over, on Larry King, as a judge at the Miss America pageant, and, of course, on Oprah.
You've got to feel it, and you've got to act upon it.
Yeah. What title would you like to use?
Normally I'm called a thought leader.
I interviewed Ray over the phone in 2007 as his success was in full flower.
I mean, the success rate of The Secret alone proves that people are open and excited to doing something different and to taking back their power and being able to create something.
Thousands were flocking to the seminars Ray was offering all over the country and incorporating Ray's teaching into their daily lives. Brandy Amstel, the filmmaker from Texas, started using something called a visioning board to help attract her life goals, like winning an Oscar.
I'm going to win an award.
If those are the thoughts that you're having, then you're going to be attracting those things into your life.
Kirby Brown was so moved by her experience with James Ray that she convinced her mother to come to one of his events.
What did you think of James Ray when you went to his seminar?
He's a very charismatic speaker.
I told you this is a pregnant field of unlimited potentiality and possibility. Everything is here.
I thought he was very intelligent.
When I talk to you from a perspective of science, you can't argue with it.
His presentation style is pretty amazing.
James Ray talks about looking at the universe as Aladdin's lamp.
The genie always says one thing.
Your wish is my command.
Do you think that actually works?
We are energy. I mean, we have warmth, you know, and when we can channel that energy, we're helping shape our reality. And I love that he talked about that.
But in a real concrete way, can I say, I want a bicycle and get one through the power of thinking?
Well, through training and really understanding. I mean, I think the law of attraction is a really powerful force that people are just scraping the idea of the power of what's going on here.
The culmination of Ray's teachings, the pinnacle event, was meant to be the Spiritual Warrior Retreat in Sedona, where followers who had been playing and paying full on for months and sometimes years shelled out nearly $10,000 for the ultimate insider's access to their guru.
This was the one that you were finally going to gain access to James. And he was going to give you the real deal, like the best part.
I was the greeter. I met everybody outside.
Event coordinator Melinda Martin, a former real estate agent, had been working for James Ray for roughly a year. She says much of what was actually planned for the event had been kept secret. And as Spiritual Warrior kicks off, Ray tells the group that for the entire week, he expects them to play full on.
Play full on means no excuses. You push it all the way. You play full on. Not 99%, not 75%, it's all the way.
And then, they say, Ray invites members of the group to prove their commitment.
He said that in the past 3 years, 49 women had shaved their heads. Who's going to be number 50? Before he even got the entire sentence out, people ran up the hill.
I did. I was the first one.
Why'd you do it?
I knew I was going to do it. Let go of all this attachment to appearances. Really, I just had to do it. It was a way of challenging myself.
Brandy Amstel is not far behind Christina. The long-haired blonde is quickly transformed into a crew-cut spiritual warrior.
I'm here to play full on, and I'm here to get all the value there is to get.
When outsiders hear about head shaving, it sets off alarm bells.
It sounds crazy, right?
Sounds a little crazy to people.
And that is just the beginning. The haircut is but the first of several intense experiences they're about to have.
Mastery is about doing that in the moment, and that's what I'm here to help people do.
Experiences that will cross the line between self-help and self-destruction.
It's the worst experience of my whole life, and I'll never be able to forget it.
What I do now is teach people how to create wealth and harmony in every area of their life.
Day 2, as the morning sun illuminates the iconic red rocks of Sedona, Arizona, the next phase of James Ray's spiritual warrior retreat begins in this meditation room. Over the next 2 days, Ray instructs his followers to meditate, to stay up all night writing in personal journals, and to practice something called the holotropic breathing method to expand their consciousness.
Can you give me a sense of how are you breathing?
Well, like that short, deep breath. You breathe for a certain while, and then you get into a state, like a dreamlike state.
Well, it sort of tricks your mind. You go into an altered state. And people start screaming and yelling and flipping around.
Can you understand how to an outsider that would sound a little strange?
It is strange.
So why did people go along with this stuff? Well, in part, of course, because they believed that James Ray was guiding them on a spiritual journey. But there's also a material aspect here. Many of James Ray's followers believe that he can teach them to use the law of attraction to get rich.
I happen to think money is pretty cool, and I can help you get a lot of it.
James Ray preaches that message throughout his Harmonic Wealth and $1 Million Mindset books, DVDs, and seminars.
Law of attraction says like attracts like. And as you lock your attention upon that, then bang, you've got a Mercedes. And that's how it works.
I've got the workbook from Practical Mysticism, Creating Absolute Wealth.
That's how Brian Assad found himself quick breathing with the other spiritual warriors in that meditation room. He'd been working for an event production company for years and wanted to take his finances to a higher level.
I want to attract the money into my life that I'm entitled to and I deserve.
Mr. James Arthur Ray.
On paper, James Ray might not be the first person you'd turn to for financial advice. He's a 52-year-old divorced junior college dropout with a background in telemarketing.
I did not have the luxury, and still don't, of a college degree.
On the other hand, it is beyond dispute that he has figured out a way to boost personal wealth, at least his own.
Thank you very much.
As Ray got more popular, he attracted enough money to buy this multi-million-dollar mansion in Beverly Hills.
He bought a big house to be closer to his celebrity friends, Hulk Hogan, Marla Maples.
Hope Miller worked at Ray's company headquarters in San Diego. At first, it didn't trouble her that Ray was making big bucks.
If he was a salesman, he was a salesman. He was selling himself. I didn't have a problem with that.
But she did start to have a problem when she saw how Ray's events were really run. The rooms kept cold, the participants kept in session until late at night, with few breaks to rest and eat. Why?
When you're tired, your unconscious mind takes over. And so while your unconscious mind is in control, you purchase the next event that you know you really need to go to.
When you came into this room, you had one of these forms on your chair.
We saw Ray's sales tactics for ourselves back in 2007 when we were granted exclusive access to one of the events that people typically attend before signing up for one of the big retreats like Spiritual Warrior.
Reach into your pocket or purse right now and pull out your credit card and fill it out. You think I'm kidding? I'm not kidding. Do it right now. Real quick, there's the first one done right there. There it is. There's another one. Boom, 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 boom. Bang.
The sales pitch worked on Brian Assad. He's dropped thousands on Ray courses over the years and dug deep into his pocket for the nearly 10 grand it cost to go to Sedona.
Did you have any second thoughts about spending this amount of money?
Yes.
You did?
Oh, yeah. That's a huge chunk of my yearly income.
Once they hook into you and they realize they have a live one, they just keep coming until they pump you dry.
Steve Salerno writes about the questionable practices in the self-help movement in his book, Sham.
If you're a self-help guru, you don't actually have the incentive for your customers ever to feel complete, because then they stop buying your
books. No, they
books.
don't need you anymore, right? If you finally do get them to the promised land, what do they need you for?
Say, for instance, that you don't have a lot of money in your bank account.
James Ray wouldn't speak to us this time around, so we called another guru who appears side by side with Ray in The Secret, a self-described metaphysician named Joe Vitale. Instead of high-intensity seminars, Vitaly prefers selling private consultations on how to attract even greater success in his special Rolls-Royce Phantom Mastermind session. Sticker price, $5,000. I can tell you personally, it's probably the most comfortable class you'll ever attend.
This is an amazing car, but $5,000 is a lot for 3 hours with you.
Well, there are people who think I should charge a lot more than that. They think that's giving it away.
When he's not rolling in the rolls, Vitaly also markets interesting items like his own margarita mix, something called youth juice, and to help fulfill your wishes, this sticker of a Russian doll. List price, $39.
And every time you see it, it's going to trigger in your mind a reminder of the goal you want.
I think there are people who are going to say, what is this guy doing?
What this guy's doing is trying to help people have a happier life.
You never wake up in the middle of the night thinking, I can't believe I'm getting away with this.
No, never. That's not the mindset, and that's not what I'm creating. I am doing my best to create products and services that make a difference in people's lives.
Salerno argues that Vitaly, Ray, and others like them do make a difference, just not a positive one.
Life is not that simple, and it's the oversimplification of the message that I think sends a very bad meta message out into society.
Reckless hope.
Reckless hope.
As for Brian Assad, he says James Ray deserves credit for teaching him to be more responsible about his money, though he admits he now has less of it.
If I hadn't dropped out on James Ray, then my bill would be significantly smaller.
He is invoking the law of attrition to see through.
So now I don't actually have enough cash in my account to pay all the bills. So I'm just kind of putting out that I need to attract the money that I need to pay all these.
James Ray's spiritual war event was supposed to help Assad, Kirby Brown, and others realize their financial dreams. It sounded like a good deal.
Well, my friend, that's harmonic wealth.
But as it turned out, the participants were about to get much more than they'd bargained for.
All I know is it was quickly becoming like a MASH unit.
People were coming out screaming, I'm dying, please don't let me die.
Stay with us.
In the Arizona desert, more than 50 people have gathered for a retreat led by self-help guru James Arthur Ray. So far, it's been uneventful, but things are about to change. Once again, here's Dan Harris.
Well, you've got to take massive action. Fate favors the bold.
On day 4 of the Spiritual Warrior Retreat, James Ray quite literally plays God.
James, his role was God, so he wore white robes and he was God, and no one was allowed to talk to God.
It's part of a game the group plays in this big tent on the grounds of the resort in Sedona, Arizona, a game inspired by the movie The Last Samurai.
I die by the sword.
You live with honor and you die with honor. And the participants had to learn how to kill themselves in the way of the samurai.
Did that strike you as off in any way?
It did, but I often think James is full of himself. So
that's really full of yourself.
I just laughed. I thought it was pretty funny. I'm like, oh God, he's not doing that, is he?
It might have started out as funny, but as the game wears on and the dead players are instructed to lie motionless on the floor...
He's the guy that was running the game.
Okay.
We were playing by the rules.
Some of the humor wears off. Kirby Brown, for one, has a rough go of it.
Kirby was killed early in the game. I'm not exactly sure why, but that she remained still for a long period of time.
And to the point of real physical pain.
That's right.
She was playing full on.
She always played full on.
Janie Brown says Ray's pet phrase, play full on, really meant follow the leader no matter what.
What do you make of him playing God in this game?
It horrified me. It horrified me. And again, I think it speaks to his sense of omnipotence, that he felt that he could push people beyond their physical limits, that he could control that.
Still, Christina Bivens and others say that samurai game is totally worth the discomfort.
We're there to try to create better lives for ourselves, to look at whatever is holding us back and to push through that stuff so that we can create a better, more successful life.
The game finally ends, and right away the group is on to the next test as their leader, James Ray, ramps up the intensity. Dozens of his followers march out into the desert for something called a vision quest. Everyone is placed in a secluded spot alone for 36 hours.
And then you basically sat in the desert for 36 hours just journaling on whatever it is you want to work on.
No food, no water.
No food, no water.
The lack of water would prove crucial later. Still, many people say the vision quest was great.
I got away from all the people and I could be with nature. I could just sit there and actually contemplate things.
But Steve Salerno says these sorts of extreme exercises are actually dangerous mind games that Ray is playing with his followers. Mind games that cross the line between instruction and abuse.
Does it make sense that you can simultaneously sell something that is so psychologically powerful that it changes you as a human being, and yet it has no adverse effects for some people?
His argument was, I will push you to your limits to show you that what you think are your limits are in fact not there.
Yeah, so you trust a man like James Ray to show you those limits. You trust the fact that he's not going to lead you over the cliff. These people become Pied Pipers.
And I want you to allow your unconscious mind.
It is well known that seminars like Ray's, which borrow elements of group therapy, can be emotionally taxing.
I'm confused.
What's less well known is that Ray's high-demand exercises can carry physical risks too. Hawaii 2008 at Ray's Modern Magic Retreat, which both Brian and Brandy had attended before going to Spiritual Warrior, several participants playing full-on broke their hands after Ray asked them to punch through a brick.
I was actually holding the brick for one of the ladies that broke her hand in Hawaii. And what struck me was there was no medical staff to deal with it.
San Diego, July 2009. A more troubling incident raises more concerns about the lack of medical staff. This time, Ray has his followers spend several hours pretending to be homeless.
You have nothing, apparently. You have no resources, apparently. You have no one to assist you.
But Melinda Martin was there to help run the event.
We put grease in their hair and dirt on their face, and we dropped them off on a bus to downtown San Diego, where they would walk around and try to survive or thrive as a homeless person.
And after that exercise, Martin noticed that one of the participants had not returned. 46-year-old Colleen Conaway from Minnesota.
I was told by James, he said, "We have found her. She is fine, but she's decided not to return to the event."
That was not true. In reality, Conaway had gone to this shopping mall in her homeless gear and jumped from the 3rd story, killing herself. Someone from Ray's staff identified the body, but Melinda Martin says neither she nor any of the participants was informed.
And we had gone on business as usual. We had a black tie affair. We had dinner, dancing, the whole bit. I mean, there was nothing to indicate that something that bad had happened.
This woman was laying in the morgue with a tag around her ankle, and people were partying.
Right. That's what it seems to be.
Even though Conaway died just months before the Spiritual Warrior Retreat in Sedona, attendees like Brandy and Brian didn't know anything about it. On the 6th and final day of James Ray's Spiritual Warrior Retreat, Ray reveals that the climax of the event will be an extreme version of an ancient Native American prayer tradition called a sweat lodge. It typically takes place in a tent like this, heated with hot rocks like a sauna. Ray says the group will be pushed to the edge.
There were going to be rocks that were in the fire. They're going to throw water on it. It's going to create a lot of steam up to 140 degrees. It was going to be hot. We were going to sweat.
Did you have a sense at all that it would be dangerous?
Yeah, for me, he said, you may feel like you're going to die, but you're not. That's just your body reacting. I trusted him 100%.
We wanted to see what a sweat lodge is like, so we asked spiritualist Anne-Marie Klock to let us document the ritual she performed.
Is it supposed to be in any way dangerous?
No, it's a place of healing. It's a place for you personally to go in and heal and return to harmony.
We enter the lodge and sit in a circle. Soon the hot rocks are brought in. Water is poured over them. And then the tent's door is zipped closed. To record what's happening in the dark, we use this special thermal camera.
Fire, sacred fire.
The temperature climbs well above 100 degrees. Man, that is hot. When they throw that water on the stones, you can feel this incredible wave of steam, sort of coming right over the top of your head. But it doesn't feel at all life-threatening, at least not when it's done in what apparently is the proper way. Sweat lodges have been performed safely for centuries, but by all accounts, James Ray's ceremony is radically different. For starters, his lodge is much bigger. It includes about 50 people packed tightly around a much larger pit of rocks. Ray tells his followers it will be a rebirthing exercise. And as the ceremony gets started, it's clear his followers are now way beyond the self-help aisles at the bookstore.
And then he dumped the water on. You could hear it sizzling. You could see the pit turn red. And then I just remember almost seeing the steam just come and roll. And it was like inhaling fire.
Inhaling fire? It was that bad?
Yeah. And it became instantly difficult to breathe because I'm not used to breathing fire.
And it got very, very hot. And I know I went through my own process of, I've never been this hot before, but I kept focused on why I'm here, on my intentions.
Eyewitnesses say Ray keeps calling for more stones, opening the tent's ventilation flap only after each 15-minute-long round is finished. Ray is seated next to the flap, so he gets some fresh air once in a while, a luxury many others do not enjoy.
Brandy, at what point did it become clear that things were going wrong?
Everybody kind of hung in there initially, and then a whole series of events started to happen.
Ray had told people to hydrate that morning, but remember, many had just been fasting for 36 hours. Many participants would later report feeling delirious, a common sign of dehydration. One participant trips and burns his arm on the hot stones. He steps outside the lodge where Melinda Martin is stationed.
And he had burned his entire arm, and all the white of his skin was gone, and the skin was just basically hanging off of his elbow. And I was trying to take care of him, and his entire mindset was getting back into there. He said, "I'm not done. I've got to go back in."
He went back in?
He went back in.
Martin and 5 other Ray employees and volunteers, including one retired nurse, are outside the tent with water and some fruit slices. Some are trained in CPR, but they are not prepared for the stream of people pouring out of the sweat lodge in abject panic.
It just looked like these people had been hit by a car or something. I mean, they were on the side, laying on their sides, barely breathing. It was unbelievable. I've never seen people in such a bad condition.
So this sounds like a horror show.
It was.
The people still inside the sweat lodge, including Kirby Brown, try to remain positive, heeding Ray's favorite slogan, play full on.
You'll need to play full on, 100%. So make sure and give 100%.
But despite their pleas to the abundant universe and their trust in James Ray, not everyone is going to make it out alive.
Kirby always played full on, always. And she played full on for James Ray to her death. And he's responsible for that.
Stay with us. James Ray had promised that his sweat lodge would be a rebirthing experience, but as the ceremony grinds on and more red-hot rocks are piled on, physical discomfort quickly turns to panic. Brandy Amsdale has had enough.
People were coming out screaming, saying, things like, I'm dying, please don't let me die.
What was James saying to people who were trying to leave?
Like it's been said before, hey, you're more than that. You could push through this.
Shauna Bowen was not officially part of the spiritual warrior retreat, but she'd volunteered to help with the sweat lodge. By the time she arrives on the scene, this supposedly spiritual exercise has become a disaster zone.
So I went down there and saw bodies lying around the sweat lodge with other people tending to them.
Shauna jumps in to help. One person who desperately needs it is Christina Biven.
And how was she doing?
She was, you didn't seem to be in a normal conscious state. You seemed very scared. She was shivering, was saying things that didn't make sense.
Brandy Amstel sees a friend collapsed on the ground. She says Ray's staffers tell her to stand back.
They were like, you know, you need to leave her alone. That's her experience. You don't want to intrude on her experience. So you sit there and just be quiet.
Inside the lodge, eyewitnesses say many disregard what their own bodies are telling them and continue listening to James Ray.
Why'd you stay?
Because I was okay.
But you might not have been okay 5 minutes into the future.
That's 5 minutes in the future. I was okay right then.
38-year-old Kirby Brown stays too. An eyewitness would later give her mother, Ginny, this version of events.
Kirby was experiencing distress. Her name was called out, and it was said that Kirby isn't breathing. Kirby's having trouble breathing. And James Ray's response was, "We will deal with that at the end of the next round."
But eyewitnesses say it isn't until at least 20 minutes later that her daughter is carried out of the sweat lodge, by now completely unresponsive.
And he didn't direct anyone to help her. People were being pulled past him, unconscious. And we continued this exercise.
Melinda Martin, the James Ray staffer, is scrambling to help other victims and says Ray shows no signs of ending his ceremony.
Did anybody reach inside the sweat lodge and say we got people in trouble out here?
People were being dragged out right in front of James.
So he had to have known that things were...
I don't know. All I know is it was quickly becoming like a MASH unit.
Martin says her fellow staffers tell her not to call 911 because it would upset James Ray. Eventually, however, someone makes the call.
Is this a result of a shooting or something?
No, it was a sweat lodge. When the paramedics arrived and they came, the guy's like, "What happened here? Is this like a mass suicide?" He said to me. And I said, "No, it was a sweat lodge gone wrong."
Okay, so when James Ray exits the sweat lodge and sees this panorama, what is his reaction?
He came out and he stretched his arms up and everybody hosed him off. And he's like, "Hey, thanks." I just stopped and I said, "How can you walk out of there when all of these people are look near death and you guys can walk out there looking like you just spent the day in a spa?"
As Martin performs CPR on Kirby Brown, she says her boss simply stares.
And I look up and he's standing right over my head, watching. He's watching from stand-up position. He didn't offer to help. He didn't say anything, nothing at all.
Did you see him do anything to help anybody?
No.
Nothing?
Nothing.
Ray's lawyers insist 911 was called promptly and that he did his best to help as many people as possible. But within hours, he's left the state.
We attempted to interview Mr. Ray at the scene. He refused to talk to us.
Meanwhile, about 20 of his followers are rushed to local hospitals. For their healing, they turn to standard medicine, not the law of attraction. But for Kirby Brown, even that is not enough.
A trooper came to our door and told us that Kirby had passed. I never heard anything from James Ray until the Tuesday after.
Kirby is not alone. Ray's sweat lodge also proves fatal for 40-year-old James Shore and 49-year-old Liz Newman. The disaster in the sweat lodge created emotional and physical wounds for James Ray's followers, but it also provoked a philosophical crisis. How could all of these horrible things happen to people who were following the law of attraction? One explanation is offered later on a conference call by a James Ray devotee.
She believes that the people who passed on did so because they enjoyed the afterlife so much that it was a good experience and they wanted to stay.
When you hear that,
I want to throw up. My daughter did not go to Sedona to die or to channel to another realm. She was pretty much in love with this life. So for people who were there to be saying this was her choice is such an insult.
It may be offensive, but that tortured explanation sheds light on the fundamental problem with the law of attraction, explaining why bad things sometimes happen to good people.
Many of our unconscious thoughts are not very positive. They are negative. They actually attract problems.
It strains credulity a bit to think that everybody who got hit by the earthquake in Haiti, all of those people had some unconscious thinking going on that led to them being victimized, right?
None of these people are being victimized. And in other words, again...
In an earthquake, you're victimized, aren't you?
In an earthquake, you're victimized. But what I'm saying is, when that happens, instead of feeling like a victim, you have to take responsibility for what's going on.
Or maybe bad things aren't really that bad. Here's how Ray tried to explain the Holocaust and 9/11 when I interviewed him in 2007.
I know many people, for instance, of the Jewish faith and heritage who don't necessarily believe that the Holocaust was bad. Now that might be shocking to you, but I have people on record who have said, hey, there was a lot of good things that came out of that, a lot of lessons, a lot of opportunities for the world. I'm suggesting to you that there's every bit as much good in 9/11 as there was bad.
But the law of attraction is not the same as the laws of the state of Arizona. After the Sedona tragedy, James Ray is not only facing a public relations disaster, but also a legal one, as police investigate whether the deaths in Sedona were an accident or a crime.
He needs to be stopped. How many more people have to die before he's stopped? He needs to be stopped.
Stay with us. Just 5 days after the sweat lodge disaster, James Ray resumes his schedule of public appearances, saying the best way to honor the dead is to continue his important work. Only weeks later, facing withering criticism, he abruptly cancels a seminar in Toronto and announces that he is foregoing all future appearances.
James Ray has refused all interview requests, but on his website tells his followers that he feels their pain.
Police in Arizona spend the next 4 months investigating the incident. Then,
we begin tonight with the arrest of motivational speaker and self-proclaimed spiritual guru, James Arthur Ray. He was charged today with 3 counts of manslaughter.
Interestingly, the man who wrote a best-selling book called Harmonic Wealth says he doesn't have enough money to make bail. He spends weeks locked up until he can get it reduced. And that is not the only embarrassing revelation. Investigators report they found a veritable pharmaceutical cornucopia in Ray's room after the sweat lodge, a suitcase filled with diet supplements and prescribed steroids. Clearly, Ray was not relying solely on the law of attraction to stay fit. Ray's attorneys maintain their client's innocence, arguing that neither Ray nor any member of his team physically prevented people from leaving, that he took extensive precautions, and that participants were warned that spiritual warrior activities could lead to serious injury.
This was a terrible, terrible accident. It wasn't a crime. Mr. Ray looks forward to his day in court.
Melinda Martin and other former James Ray employees have since left in disgust over the handling of the incident.
What does it make you think about your former employer?
I feel like he didn't live with integrity because they were so, and I don't know, I mean, he's so busy in covering up, trying to keep the magic and trying to keep the spell going, that I think that he's lost the sense of common sense and humanity and compassion.
Others are similarly disillusioned. Brandy Amstel, hospitalized after the sweat lodge, pursued a civil claim against Ray, which was settled out of court.
I won't do another James Ray program.
Still, she's not ruling it following another guru.
There's tons of other leaders out there, other leaders that follow a code of ethics, that actually care about people.
Kirby Brown's personal journey ended when friends and family gathered in Mexico to scatter her ashes.
But it's now time to release her into her newfound freedom.
I say goodbye a little bit every day. And some days the goodbye is bigger than other days. I think I'm learning a lot about grief, that it comes in waves. I know that Kirby wouldn't want us to drown in it, you know, that you have to get on the wave and ride it in, as she would have. But you have to feel it anyway. You have to go through it.
Kirby's mother, Ginny, hopes the tragedy will spur some regulation for the self-help industry.
What do you think should happen to James Ray?
He abandoned all those people in Sedona. He has to be made responsible for that.
As he awaits trial, Ray mostly stays behind the gates of his mansion, but he hasn't stopped marketing his teachings. He started a series of internet videos.
I have a wealth of information still inside of me. It's my gift to you.
But if you want more, you have to pay a $97 subscription fee for a weekly internet radio show. We called in to ask a question.
Hi, James. My name is Dan Harris. I'm from ABC News. And my question is, if the law of attraction really works and you know how to use it, why have so many bad things happen to you and your followers?
Well, you know, Dan, Mickey, I think we need to flush Dan right on down the stream. You're going to get into challenging times and difficult times as you go down the stream of life, and to think that you're not is really just living kind of in an illusion. So,
despite all the controversy surrounding their guru, many of Ray's followers are still listening.
Would you go to another James Ray event?
Yep.
You would?
Yeah, because for me, I believe I'm in touch with my limits.
Can you understand why some people might say, this sounds totally nuts? You've been to events where people have gotten hurt and killed, yet you would go to another one.
Yes.
Why?
Because of what I'm getting out of it, what I'm learning from it.
It's horrible what happened in the sweat lodge, that 3 people died, but my life is better, and I am so grateful for that, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
And it is that ability to see the positive, even in something truly horrific, to define your own reality, if you will, that has so many people continuing to follow the law of attraction and those who preach it.
You have a lot of people in this culture who are endlessly searching for something. They are of the belief that if this doesn't do it, then the next thing will.